backs now. I'm almost guaranteeing that, potentially. But you never know. Could be happening. Could not. Anyways, I think I have everything fixed. And we got some intro music over there. So it might be a little bit too loud. But let's see what we got going on. So anyways, thank everybody for being here tonight. It's been a long time since we have live streamed, and I appreciate you coming through. Going away from YouTube for like 3 months or longer, it's hard to get your numbers back up again. It's hard to stay streamlining everything. Excuse me. So don't anticipate a big turnout, and the only reason why is because I did just a 1 day notice. So we'll give it about a few more minutes, and then we'll jump into a topic of discussion. And I'm sure some of you all have already started to figure out what's going to be talked about tonight, potentially. So we'll see. And if you can hear me out there, let me know. If you can't hear me, you can turn it up or whatnot. So we'll figure it out. But we'll give it 2 more minutes, 9:34, and then we'll go and we'll move forward the stream and talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Hopefully it's interesting. Sounds good so far. Thank you. So for the small talk while we're in here, just really quickly. So I buy houses. Is that just a clever marketing, or is that the real deal? You buy houses. So at 9:35 we're gonna start, and we'll go through this live stream. It's 9:33 right now. 9:35. Live stream. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your neighbors. Tell whoever. Tell your enemies. Whoever it is. Let them know. Subscribe to my channel. But it's not about numbers. It's just about going over things in the Tupac community. Never obey. Welcome. We're not gonna keep this stream very long. Probably about an hour. I know people gotta work in the morning or whatever they do. So reporting for duty. Thank you. Appreciate that. So, man, we're in for a good show tonight. You're gonna like this one, I think. Depending. I mean, the Tupac community, it depends on who you talk to. There may be. It may be agreeable tonight, it may not be. So 9:35, 9:34 right now, and then we're gonna get started. Live stream tonight. And here we go. So 1 more minute. Thanks for everybody coming in tonight. Appreciate that. So, all right, music's tapping out. It's done. We're moving forward. Have I heard the great news? Yeah, I think I know. Tupac, he's dead. He's gone. Is that the news you're talking about? All right. So tonight is no mystery, and we've been waiting for this day. And I can't say that I've been waiting for this day, but as a researcher, we always have to research topics, whether it's unbiased or biased topics that you want to investigate for your own, just for information to kind of match up stories or whatnot. And I think tonight we got a good piece of information, or informations, whatever, doesn't matter. So All right. There is never any great news. Well, that's subjective. It depends on where you live or who you are or whatever. There's always great news, but it just depends. Anyhow, welcome, Carl. Appreciate you coming in here enthusiastic with your kind words of wisdom or whatever. So we're gonna jump in the first scene in the first bit, and if you haven't already done it, I suggest you do it. It may be controversial, but it gives you a little bit more information. So jumping into the first scene here, and we got the chat live there, and I got some pictures that I'm gonna go ahead and pull up here. So if you haven't gone, what's up, Gino? Welcome, welcome everybody who's in here tonight. And if you haven't already done it already, you can go ahead and do it. Whether it be, and I'll be simplistic here. You can go out and you can get the hardcover copy, which I didn't, or you can get the downloadable copy, which I did because I had $50 in my Amazon account that was credited for a mess up. So we have this. We have the information that I'm going to pull up right now. So lo and behold, we have Keefe and his book called Compton Street Legend. And I'm not promoting his book by any means. You certainly have the opportunity to go out there and buy the book if you want to buy the book, or as I mentioned before, you can get it on Amazon, Kindle, bootleg it, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter to me. Anyhow, I went on about the book yesterday on my Kindle Fire. I know I still have a Kindle Fire. Anyhow, I read the book and it was pretty interesting. I read all 200 and odd pages of the book, and there was some really good information in there. Now, you might ask yourself, is it true? Is it untrue? You know, that's all basically subjective as well. So I'm going to basically go into what I read, in my opinions, in the book, and then you can certainly, and just small excerpts of the book so that you could pretty much determine. Well, the only reason I bought the book, Gino, was because I wanted to see how much information was straightforward, what information was embellished, and just try to piece things together. I'm not saying that I believe him, because I certainly don't, but what I am saying is that just to get, as a researcher, you have to be able to go out and you have to be able to gather all the information, and you have to figure out whether or not you like the book, or whether or not it makes sense to you, or it doesn't make sense to you. Now, there were some interesting quotes in there, and I have some that are going to be put down here right below the picture. But I read the book, 200 pages, as I mentioned, odd pages, and it wasn't. I mean, for whoever wrote the book, I'm certainly he didn't write the book himself. But just to read off, did he have anything interesting about the Pac shooting? You know what? He had a lot of interesting things. He had more things about his connection with Suge Knight, and one of the most interesting things that I found was that, and maybe this is something that's been talked about in the past, and you can certainly chime in, but what he had mentioned was that he was part of the funding monies to get Death Row started. Now, he says he didn't really know Harry O. and Michael Harris, he didn't really know him, but they had spent time in prison with a guy who he names as a guy named Big Boss, and I think it's some individual who is affiliated with the Colombian cartel. It's something like that, a Mexican cartel that was supplying all the drugs for all these guys in California at the time when the drugs were being infiltrated into the California streets by either whoever, the CIA or the Compton drug dealers, or California drug dealers rather. And that was a very interesting statement there, with him saying that he had money involved, and matter of factly, there was a stronger connection than ever, as far as what he mentions in his book, that they had been friends somewhat, they'd gone to parties together, they had been invited to gatherings, they had known each other and things like that. Now, it was more elaborated than it was before in his when he comes out and he speaks about whatever about Suge Knight or whatever. These guys actually hung out. They hung out during a video shoot with Death Row Records. The Southside Crips hung out with the Mob Pyru and Suge Knight, and also he basically just laid it on the line. Now I don't know how much he's telling the story, but it's very interesting. So there's more of a stronger connection if you go by what he says to Death Row Records than what has been put out there by, you know, the other side, which would be Death Row Records. Kind of like, you know, we don't associate it with those guys because they're Crips and we're Bloods, but it was more of we hanging out together, we're hanging out at movie shoots, we're hanging out at these places. Matter of fact, he said he was hanging out at the California Love video shoot with Dr. Dre and a few other people. That's what Keefe D has stated. Now, is it a fact? I don't know. But what I do know is there's a lot of information in there that is pretty interesting. Now, I'll go ahead and bring them up here, some of the quotes that he did. So, basically, we already talked about Keefe D. He elaborated on his connection to Death Row Records. The funding is what he did, was what he said, was that he was associated with the funding, money, and that he had a lot of money tied up with Death Row Records. Don't know how true that is, but that's something that he mentions. Now, another interesting topic or statement that was made was when Keefe D was getting trailed by the FBI, because after Tupac was killed, if you believe that he was killed by the Compton Crips, as I mentioned before, it's your choice to believe whatever you want to believe. But if you're listening to his story says, and I can't say that my story says this because I'm not the one that wrote the book. I'm not the one that lived his life. I'm not the one that wore his shoes. So I'm just basically, quote unquote, is what Keefe D is saying. So Keefe D says that when the FBI was trailing him after the Tupac shooting, that eventually, as time passed, they started to do a lot of surveillance on them because they were involved in heavy drug activity. We're talking about multi-million dollars. And he pretty much goes and tells a story about how he lived this lavish lifestyle and all these things were great for him until the night that Tupac got killed by, supposedly, he says, Baby Lane, right? But then he's very vague about a lot of descriptions as far as the people that were there that night, because there was other people that were there as far as Grape Street Crips and other individuals that he names. Some of them were dead already. Some of them are still potentially alive. But essentially, he really started telling his whole story because everybody else started telling is what he says in his book. So, as I mentioned before, I know there's people that are probably going to be upset about me talking about this and me, you know, but as a researcher, you have to be able to talk about what it is that is out there, and then you go and you look at the information, you figure out whether it's truth or it's a lie. So, as I mentioned before, just a disclaimer, this is his book, not my book. I didn't write this book. But he did mention, Machiavelli the Don, that Officer Reynolds was a hitman for Death Row Records, and basically he mentioned that Death Row Records wasn't really powerful as far as when it comes to being gangs. I mean, I know they had the Mob Pyru, but he felt more like Death Row Records was more of a studio gangsters than it was any real gang power. And, you know, of course, him being Southside, they had power. And one of the statements that he made was that they wanted to kill Suge so bad that they had two white boys, is what he says in his book. They were one was gonna dress up as a UPS officer. UPS delivery driver, and another guy was gonna dress up as some clean-cut guy that you would never suspect would be a hitman. And they were going to kill him as soon as they found him because they were actually doing surveillance on where Suge Knight's whereabouts were. And that was according to Keefe D. He wasn't scared. The only problem that he saw in this whole predicament was that he knew that there was police on Death Row Records payroll that could potentially pull you over and just essentially take you somewhere and kill you if you want to take it down those roads. But that's what he was afraid of. He was afraid of police officers being able to corner him or his associates and kill them. But he said that Reynolds had a hard on for his group, and basically everything went tumbling down because Reynolds was just on him big time. So that is true. So I'm gonna read a comment here. I think Death Row was very powerful. They had a bunch of killers with badges, so they say. Yeah, well, that's what it was. That's what he alluded to in the book. He mentions David Mack. He mentions Rafael Perez. He mentions Sergeant Reynolds, and he just talks about Compton PD. What he did say that was very interesting is as soon as they found out that this whole thing was going to jump off right after the Las Vegas thing, right? That the police went to go see him, and a certain police officer went to go see him, and he said, "If you mess with my son, the gloves are coming off." Now, I'm not going to mention whose name that is, and you can go ahead and you can draw connections and you can connect the dots there. But a certain police officer who was associated with Death Row Records, his kin went and told Keefe that if he did anything to his son, that the gloves are going to be coming off. And I thought that was a very interesting topic. And here's another thing that was never been mentioned before. When the $60,000 that was going to be used to pay Orlando Anderson to basically testify for Suge Knight, there was 2 officers that were with Suge Knight. And you know who those officers are. And I thought that was very interesting. That's kind of been left out of the book. I mean, out of the public eye. But Keefe and somebody else showed up, and they just found it very odd that there would be 2 police officers from Compton PD there with Suge Knight during that whole ordeal. Evidently, Suge Knight doesn't even get off because the judge doesn't even believe what Orlando Anderson said. So when eventually later on, if you believe Greg Kading's story, when the FBI agent gives Keefe basically his card and says, "Hey, you need to come speak with us because we got you on this big conspiracy to distribute PCP across the land, and basically federal mandatory, you're going to be spending a lot of time in prison." Greg Kading says to him as soon as the FBI agent leaves, "If you don't come to me and speak to me, the deal's off the table," which him being LAPD. So that was kind of interesting, and it kind of makes it seem like that, you know, some people did it to write a book so they can make money, they can make docuseries and things of that nature. So it just was crazy. So Sergeant Reynolds becomes public enemy number 1 for Southside Crips. Okay, and as we talked about before, and here's a question for everybody who's in the chat right now: Machiavelli the Don, Never Obey, Gino Mouton, Machiavelli, everybody. Is this story enough to elaborate detail by detail? I'm not even giving you 1% of the story, everything that I'm telling you tonight. Is it enough to believe his story, or is this just for him to make money off his book? I mean, because essentially, you know, I've heard that, you know, he's willing to do interview for $1,000, $500. I have other sources that have come to me and told me that he'd be willing to do it for $750,000. But pretty much, he laid it out on the line already when he wrote his book. So why would you even pay him any money now that his book is out? And how much money is he going to make from this book? Now, according to him, he made millions of dollars, and I wouldn't understand why, with all the money that he made, that he's, you know, if you think about it, he's completely broke. I mean, if you sell your interview for $500, $750, and you don't have any money, that just spells to me that you're broke, and you're just gonna say what you got to say. But you got it for $10 if you got it from Amazon. Everything he was gonna say, you had everything. And if you look at it too, on his epilogue, he called out a lot of people on his epilogue, and I'm gonna read that to you. And if, like I said, if you get the opportunity, read the book, whether or not you believe it or not. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just giving you the information tonight so that you can go and read it, and you can say and do what you feel is the truth. But, like I said, it's probably not it's probably not popular opinion right now. I mean, people don't like the guy. I get it. I don't like the guy either. And if it was him and if he was associated, he essentially changed the whole landscape of the rap music industry. And basically, he said Death Row Records was just studio gangsters. They were not afraid of them. Period. They weren't afraid of anybody who was associated with them. It was just the police that they were afraid of. That's it. Nobody else. So, ask yourself. We go read the story. I mean, essentially, he kind of goes through his whole life story about how he got involved with drugs and how he started selling drugs and how Death Row Records and how a lot of people were associated with drugs and how they were making money selling drugs and they were using drug business as a front. He pretty much names everybody that was there in his mind. You know, like I mentioned, everybody who was supposedly there in Las Vegas that night, talks about the guns, talks about where they were, talks about everybody. He didn't bring Corey Anderson up, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember that or not, but he didn't bring up Corey Anderson. He brought up some other guys that I've never heard of before, some Great Street Crips and things like that. So I'll just read the epilogue to you for anybody who is not going to read the book. So anybody who's going to read the book, I'm sorry, but I apologize. But basically what he says is, my last words are reserved for those of you who have been hiding under rocks thinking you have gotten away with dirty stuff. It's actually explicit, but I'm not going to say any cuss words today. And not only that, but if you buy the book, man, this book there's so much grammar and punctuation. It's just terrible. So a lot of words are together. It's a lot of run-on sentences. I need to include this section because there are a lot of people out there trying to make me look like a messed up dude. I'm here to expose. You know who you are. When I got involved in the drug game, my goal was for all of us to have homes, money, and nice things in life, to have fun like a family. I made sure your kids were fed, you went to school looking nice, all that, but you guys allowed the white man to come in and divide us. Just because they have little FBI stuff on their back doesn't mean anything. They're the same as us. They're humans just like us. The white man has been doing us like this for 400 years, and y'all let them come in and divide us like that. Y'all are wrong, and you sold me out for chicken change. Which leads me to my first target. And his first target, which would be no surprise, would be Greg Kading. Kading, you're a snake. You're seriously jeopardized the lives and safety of myself and my family so you could be seen as a super cop who solved the Tupac and Biggie murders. You ain't did nothing. B. If it wasn't for the FBI and the U.S. attorney on my, you know what, I wouldn't have told them a MF thing with your weak stuff. You wasn't nothing but a little LAPD detective. If the truth is your defense, you should have told the whole truth. Instead, you put my name and my identity out in public and concealed the identities of all the other mothers under me that flipped. You used the men order to get me. I've been to the federal prison system, so I know all the codes and everything about the system. Anyone who has been in the feds knows there are sentencing guidelines, and if you have a federal case, you have to be sentenced under those guidelines. I have received 70-month sentence for a 7-second phone call based on the sentencing guidelines. They gave me 10 months per second. They didn't catch me with anything, just an ambiguous phone call, and I did 70 months. If you caught me, do your time, homie. I got caught up. I did my time when I reviewed the paperwork surrounding my case. From the Freedom of Information Act, it was effed up. Most of the names and sensitive information had been redacted, but it was easy for me to know who and what we're talking about because I was there. This happened to me. The paperwork confirmed it, that I instinctively already knew some of the closest to me flipped on me, and me in the effed up predicament that this ain't right. A lot of dudes I thought were true to the game weren't true at all. It seems to me they envied me and wanted to take my place. It was good for everybody, and I hate that they put me in the mix like that. Put all that on me. Here are some major perpetrators, guys who caught with the worst stuff than me, and based on the sentencing guidelines, they should have been sentenced considerable prison time. Take a look at the sentencing table and controlled substance and decide for yourself. So basically, he calls out everybody. He calls out a guy named Tucker, who was the cousin of Tayshaun Prince, who was an NBA basketball player. He said that he was an FBI payroll. Dirt Rock, which was one of the guys he says was with him the night in Las Vegas. Menace was another guy that he called out. I'm not going to read it all this whole epilogue. A guy named Uchi, a guy named C. Ray, who I believe was a Great Street Crip, a guy named The Reaper, some guys that were from the out of town, Nameless, and the Boss Man. And the Boss Man was the guy that he was associated with the cartel in Mexico or either in Colombia. I'm not too sure which one it was, but that's basically what he said. And going back into the second scene there, so when you read his story, it's about 200 pages long. Question for you is this story to elaborate for Keefe to be lying? So is he lying? That's the question. Is he doing this for money? Because there's not very much money in this anymore as far as from his story's perspective. I mean, if you look at it twice, he's lied twice. First time, second time, and then the third time, he's sticking to his story. And that's where we're at on that. Now, the other thing he mentioned was that Las Vegas Metropolitan PD, he didn't care. He said he was running circles around them, and if it wasn't for the FBI, he would have never confessed to this crime that he supposedly did, is what he says. So, was the Las Vegas Metropolitan PD were they that incompetent that they weren't able to at least catch him or any information? What was the disconnect? Was it the Compton Police Department didn't want to share any information with the Las Vegas Metropolitan PD because it would uncover something else deeper? Maybe some police departments involved in some kind of drug trafficking or crime of some sort. Was that the reason? And then was the Puffy element used to hide something more sinister? And I think that's what I was alluding to right now. That they used the Puffy thing. I mean, I know that there was a beef going on between Puffy and Tupac, but was that used as a ruse to basically cover up another story that could have been true or whatnot? So I'm going to read some comments here. Gino, this stuff is funny. I don't believe none of this stuff. His story is effed up. Las Vegas cops involved and Vegas detectives not involved. They knew their own is involved in Compton PD. Saying that Katie and posted up, you allowed to show excerpts from a book. There is some truth in the book by judging, but by what you read, but no truth about the murder. He has to lie for Katie. Well, I think more than anything, I think if let's just say that he didn't go along with that story. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, you have a cartel person who was basically be on your back, and essentially, would they kill your family? Would they kill a lot of people that you love? If you would have flipped on them and gave them away. I think all in all, the guy Boss Man ended up going to prison either way, but it wasn't based on anything that I guess Keefe implicated him in. As I mentioned before, I bought the book. It was $10, and it was with credit that I had. I bought it on my Kindle Fire, and I'm sure that people are going to buy the book, and somebody's going to leak it out there as a bootleg. And I don't know how much money he's actually going to make. I mean, you're only making $10 a sell, and then you're making $20 for a hard copy, and I don't want a hard copy. It's a quick read. It's not very elaborate. I mean, it's pretty much straight to the point. Southside got started. Death Row got started. Drug money was involved some way or another. And then all these things started happening. He starts mentioning about Tupac. Tupac wasn't a gangster, which is debatable, as you say it. And he said that another guy, one of his friends, I can't remember the name, but there's a song that mentions, and and don't get me twisted here. I mean, I can't remember everything, but in the book he mentions that Tupac mentioned Rosecrans in another intersection. I think that was associated with Mob Piru or Bloods in general. And then one of his friends, Keefe's friends, saw Tupac and basically jammed him up and got him by his collar and put him against the wall and told him, you know what that means, you better ease up off that. And then Big Syke says he doesn't know what he's talking about, and blah blah blah. So, as I mentioned before, I don't understand, and I don't know would make a difference on this, but there's a lot of stories, a lot of small stories that he tells that I've never heard before. People have never heard before. But I mean, it's no mystery. Okay, that in his book he says that he's essentially him and his posse killed Tupac. I'm not telling you I believe that. Okay, don't get me twisted here. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just telling you what his quotes are. And I'm sorry that I have to keep mentioning that. I just don't want people to say, you believe Keefe's story. No, I'm not telling you I believe his story. I'm just telling you that these are the things that he's talking about. He's telling you stories as he's coming up. These guys aren't, gang bangers as far as sagging pants. These guys are wearing suits and top hats and spending money, living a lavish lifestyle, talking about how they're hanging out with Puffy, talking about how they don't like Suge, talking about how they're hanging out with Suge, talking about how this may have never happened if they didn't jump Orlando Anderson and another guy at a Foot Locker, some guy, can't remember his name, Garcia, not too sure. But I will tell you that, I mean, if he's telling the story, he's running with it, and he's running with it 100 miles an hour. And obviously he doesn't care, and he doesn't ever think that he's ever going to get prosecuted for any of this, because he pretty much talked about it. Doesn't care. Telling the whole story, but the whole story has been out there. All the intricate details that he's telling are probably things that we would never know, obviously, unless we knew who his friends were, or who anybody is that would know these details. So, but he did mention Compton PD a lot. He did talk about Compton PD a lot. He talked about the head of security. He talked about the head of security's kin. He talked about, he also talked about a guy that got lit up, and I think that was Bobby Finch, who got lit up, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they shot in the car 38 times. And then he mentioned somebody else by name, but he just used their initials. So he was pretty much laying it all on the line as far as talking about this gangbanger, that gangbanger they were associated with, how they would roll deep, 50 deep, all these other things they were talking about. As I mentioned, it's 200 pages long. Read it if you want. If you don't, that's cool. I mean, you can draw your own connections. I personally just read it because, I don't know, I think I just like reading books. I just like researching. I have no opinion one way or another. And is Keefe lying to protect somebody else? That would only ring true to his All right, so I got to read some questions here in the boards. And let's get this interactive. I mean, I'm just not here to talk. I'm here to basically read questions, and then we can bounce opinions off each other, and figure out what it is. I mean, this whole ordeal. Like I said, there's several sections there. He pretty much comes out on the interface of the book and says that, 2 rap artists died: Tupac Shakur, Notorious B.I.G. The only interesting thing I have is, how come, they didn't go after the 4 guys who were supposedly in the car? They go at the Notorious B.I.G. So, and I have a really great question for you. I'm gonna ask this question to everybody who's on the board tonight, and you can answer this question, and you can be candor about it. I gotta ask you, okay? And this is a what if, and then we'll answer some of your questions tonight. And my question for you is that if somebody that was associated with Bad Boy Records killed Tupac, and you knew it, and it could be proven, would you still feel the same if you like Notorious B.I.G.? Would you still feel the same about finding justice for Notorious B.I.G.? Or would you just say, Bad Boy did what they did, it's an eye for an eye, I don't care about him? So I want to hear from y'all, what y'all think. Is your love for Tupac more than if those guys that were associated with Bad Boy Records killed Tupac, that you would say, I can't be involved in that case? And I mentioned this before, back when I had a friend of mine who told me, you know what? He says, I know you like Tupac. You don't really talk about Biggie much. He says, I like Tupac, but I could never, ever care about what happened to Notorious B.I.G. because my friend believes that somebody that was associated with Puffy killed Tupac. And of course, I respect his opinion. He tells me this, and he says, I can't, man. I don't care about Notorious B.I.G. I'm not saying that I'm gloating on another man's death. But what I'm telling you is if I knew who killed the Notorious B.I.G., I wouldn't turn him in because I have that much love for Tupac. And we pretty much ended the conversation like that. He asked me my opinion. I said I don't have an opinion one way or another. I like Tupac, greatest rapper of all time. And if I knew who killed him, then obviously I would have a decision to make. So, last thing I'll say about Keefe D, one of his statements, was that he said he couldn't understand how come Death Row Records didn't protect Tupac better than they did. He knew what kind of people they were. He knew what kind of killers they were. He knew that if they messed with Southside, that they were going to come back and get him. So the question is whole $1 million, did it mean anything? Because supposedly Keefe D was making millions of dollars on his operation. And then for somebody to offer $1 million to kill Tupac and Suge, I mean, that's like, I guess that's kind of comparable, and it may not be in the equation of Dr. Dre coming out with the Detox album after all these years because he doesn't care. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need it. Why would he do it? He probably never will come out with the album because he has too much money. So I guess, is that rationale? They had too much money to where $1 million wouldn't mean anything. So, anyhow, we are going to read some questions off the board, and you can say what you got to say. So, Gino, I read your Keefe D is a clown. Every time I heard Mob James talk about him, he talks like Keefe D isn't anything. All right. Did he admit that he dealt drugs together with... He didn't mention anything that he had dealt any drugs with that guy. He didn't mention anything like that. All he really did mention was that guy was protected by essentially his kin, and that they kind of had the upper hand if you read between the lines, because Death Row had police officers under their payroll. And I don't know if you really alluded to David Mack being involved in the murder of Notorious B.I.G., Rafael Perez. I think he did. But I think he kind of treaded the waves a little, just, carefully there. So, let's see here. Did he admit that he dealt drugs? Okay. The whole story is confusing. Even those that were there all have different accounts. How they find Pac and Suge, they were driving that. The reason why he says that he found them, right, was because he said that they were doing radio promotion for this big event that Tupac was going to be doing at Club 662. They had a time and everything is what they had. So essentially they said they had 4 vehicles is what they say. He says. And that's how they caught him. He basically was in a car, and there was people that were yelling Tupac, and he had his head out of the sunroof or whatnot, and that's basically when they did what they did. And this is his story. This is what he's saying. I'm not telling you this. This is not my theory. This is just what he's saying. So, let's see here. So it's childish to say a gangbanger alone hit Suge and got away with it and got involved with it years. Crooked cops involved. I mean, that's very plausible. I would say that's more plausible than anything. I mean, police officers are the ones that get away with these crimes, and they don't get caught. And it's this very mystery, this shrouded with mystery when a police officer is involved in a crime, and nobody finds out about it because obviously somebody's suppressing information, right? So, I mean, you can pretty much spin it any way you want to do it. It's really up to you what you believe. I'm not saying I believe the story because I think that more than anything, there's a lot of embellishment there. And I think it has to sound good so that people would buy it. People would be interested in it. The only reason I bought it was because I had $10 to spend. It was credit for, I had $50 actually. So, I hate to think, but did Tupac actually get away? Did Tupac actually get away? There's no concrete evidence that he's dead. Well, here's another thing that people have said, and this is just a theory that's out there if you want to start going down rabbit holes. That Keefe was, as I mentioned in the book, they're friends the whole time. They've been friends, and not best of friends where they're hanging out and going to barbecues together and stuff, but they see each other here and there, and it's more of like kind of a love-hate relationship. And this all goes back to, did Suge Knight hire Keefe? That's one of the theories that was thrown out there. And that goes back to him sitting in the car and having bullets come at him and saying, hey, don't hit me, just hit Tupac. So that's where I can't believe that story. But that's been one thing that's been mentioned before. So I'm going to read some comments here. Same cops, same patsies. Papsies work together. That's stupid. Did Biggie do Tupac? Your friend is believing the East and West fake war. The Don fooled everybody. Like Tupac said, there's no East and West, small beef between men. Not even serious. They were kids, man. Don't celebrate the death of two young men. It's sad. Biggie's case should have been solved too, man, period. Dre Snoop Puffy, the right. Did Keefe allude to he believes? Well, he didn't say. He just mentioned that David Mack and somebody else was on death row payroll, and I think he kind of mentioned that they were involved in it, but nowhere did he mention Poochie Faust. Nowhere did he say that. He just said that a bunch of Crips are getting killed and a bunch of Bloods were getting killed, but nowhere did he mention that Wardell was the killer. And it seemed more like he was leaning towards David Mack and Raphael being involved in that shooting. Keefe D's book is out to keep the people off the trail to solve the Tupac murder case. Yeah, I mean, you got to ask yourself, why all of a sudden? I mean, he said that his cancer's in remission. He's basically been to the doctor. The doctor said, you're good. He basically said he wants to get this off his chest for 15 years or whatever. I don't know, because he told the story back when or whatever. And he says that he just wants to relinquish the demons of the things that he says he needs to tell the world. So, I mean, take it for whatever it is. Take that statement at face value if you like. I mean, we're getting wrapped up in all of this. I mean, we all have our opinions on what happened. I mean, I'm just coming out here, maybe saving you $10. Maybe I'm saving you $20 so that you don't go out and buy the book. Maybe everything I tell you tonight would be like, hey, this book, I'm not going to buy it. And you might be right. I mean, it's the short read, and I'm not going to read it again. But I'm just, like I said, as a researcher, I got to come out here and I have to tell you, I can't just be biased and tell you all the stuff that I believe or tell you all the stuff that I've read and then not read anything else. Now, the one book that I haven't read, and I'll be truthful about this, I've never read the book by Greg Kading. I hate science fiction, but I haven't read that book before, so I'll just throw it out there. Supposedly, Pac had a vest that night, took it off after he jumped. Don't know about that. All right. They were civil. Suge Knight just said Tupac's alive again the other day. Why would he keep saying this stuff? I don't know why he would keep. I don't know. I mean, I guess the only thing you can really believe is just to stay relevant. I mean, Tupac being alive, it will always be a topic of discussion for a lot of people. Now, do I believe he's alive? No, not at all. Now, do other people think he's alive? Yeah, sure. But you know what? To each their own. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, man, you're stupid because you believe Tupac's alive. I don't have an opinion on you believing whatever you want to believe. If you believe Tupac's alive, then, hey, great for you. I mean, whatever it is that gives you hope, then cool. I'm all for that. And, you know, some people just need that hope. And sometimes things have to be portrayed as being alive so that there could be something greater to at least admire about rap or the rap industry. Because, I mean, let's face it, the rap industry has gone down the toilet bowl because there's nothing that is any good. I mean, there's a few artists that are decent, but there'll never be another Tupac again, and there'll never be another golden age of rap music that was here in the mid '90s. There just won't be. So I'm gonna go down to keep going on the line here. Suge Knight said Tupac. Okay, cordial. That's not a credible story. Nobody would do that. Gino, is he making people who killed him in the hospital? Gino, he is alive. I understand my plot to get rich. Oh man, Gino says Tupac is alive. You read between the lines. Don't say people can't say. They want to say. They have to speak in riddles. People will believe documentaries, books written by crooked cops and culture vultures, but nobody believes the ones who said he laid down his life to evade tricks in prison. Machiavelli, I go by. Well, let's just say that Tupac did fake his death, right? What prevents him from coming back? His enemies aren't strong anymore. I mean, none of his enemies are strong anymore. Is he going to go back to prison? I mean, it's been so long that case that would, I mean, the evidence is so subdued already, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense anymore that he probably wouldn't even do very much time. So I don't think so. I think he's dead, but I mean, we'll never hear from him again, so he might as well be dead, right? We'll never hear from him again. I can guarantee that right now. We'll never hear, and that is not a revelation by somebody who could tell the future. That is just a fact that I say. We'll never hear from him again. Never. And nobody can argue that. Nobody. You'll never hear from him again. So as I mentioned before, he might as well be dead if he's not dead. If you believe he's not dead. But as I mentioned before, to each their own. And this is not a public forum for me to say, hey, you're stupid, you believe that. That's not what we do here. Just respect people's opinions and you keep moving. But I do have an update for you. And I don't mean to switch it up. We'll go back into that topic. But Jmix, if anybody has been wondering where Jmix is, he is basically in a bunker somewhere. No, I'm joking. He's actually enjoying his life. He's actually enjoying his life with his kids. He's actually enjoying his work life. He's actually working on projects. And he has some really good projects that are going to be coming out here soon. He got a very good interview lined up, and I can't give away anything because that's not my place. But he has a really good interview lined up, and you certainly will be interested. I know that Suge Knight interview, a lot of people loved it, and he got really good feedback and a lot of views on that. And other channels were mad about that, but that's just the nature of this business that we're in. A lot of times there's a lot of jealousy that goes around, and people will talk about you, right, to get a reaction. But it's okay. I mean, someone talks about me, I really don't care. It is what it is. You keep moving. You keep moving forward. You don't have time to deal with all the hoopla that's out there on these other channels that want to talk bad about you. That's okay. So, yeah, he's working on projects. He has some stuff coming along. He's enjoying his life and things of that nature. But segueing into that, I just want to let everybody know in the chat room that, I mean, we all see each other as far as the same names here and there or whatever. And the Tupac community about a year ago was really on fire. I mean, there was just stories coming out and interviews coming out, and people just pretty much mixing it up in different chat rooms or chat boards or whatever you want to call it. And it started becoming a lot of this, information, personal information, doxing people's addresses, and started becoming threats and things of that nature. And I saw a lot of people that were, and not in this chat room, but there was a lot of people that were from other chat rooms. And I'll tell you one thing, I've blocked a lot of people that were just brought nothing good to the table. And I saw that there was a lot of people who were like portraying themselves as being loyal and being, oh, you got the best channel and things of that nature. And it's not even about praising about the best channel. That has nothing to do with this conversation. What it all come down to is I saw people saying, well, you got a good channel and F this channel. We're not here to pick sides, right? Well, what I saw though was a lack of loyalty, right? And you saw people that had shiny jewelry and they were basically putting it in people's faces and saying, take it, take it, I'll give you everything, I'll give you all. It's kind of a story, depending on what you like to read the Bible. I'm not gonna get all holy here because that's not the place, but basically there's a correlation there between, here's a shiny jewelry, come be with me, and then essentially people just got weak and flipped, and they show their true colors. So if there's anything you take away from it in life, be loyal to the people who brought you in, the people who were loyal to you, helped you get to where you had to get to, and don't flip for easy stuff. Views don't mean nothing. Getting guests doesn't mean nothing. None of that, because a lot of times you see individuals who flip for the jewelry, and essentially you get trapped and you basically sell your soul. So anyways, that's my quick synopsis of that, and I'll just put it that way. And I don't know half the people, and I don't want to talk bad about nobody, but all I will say is that, if you don't like somebody, you're not going to deal with somebody, just don't deal with them. There's no point in trying to destroy their livelihoods. So that's pretty much that. I'm not going to say anything, but family is precious, and people's privacy is precious, and people can appreciate that, I guess. So jump out of that. I don't have opinions about anybody. I don't know. Just being general here. So anyhow, going back, read the book, hear the book, read the book, spend your $10. Don't spend your $10. You want a hard copy, $20, $25. I don't know. Anyways, I'm sure it'll be out there on the web. Somebody will bootleg it. Everything gets bootlegged. So, you can go there and you can read it. So I'm going to read some more comments here. We're probably going to be at an hour here at 10:30. We're going to wrap it up about 10:45. I got another topic that was pretty, before this thing here, and I wanted to get this one out of the way because I didn't think this was too important. Very, very trivial, the Keefe book. I have another bigger and better topic of discussion that's going to be coming here soon. You can listen to it. It's going to be better than this one here. But I appreciate everybody coming tonight to listen to this. It's all good. So I'm going to come back and read some more comments and can pretty much see what we're going to say here. So I'm going to go up the line here. Sorry about that. It's kind of hard to keep up with all these comments. So supposedly, okay, here we go. He's live. People will believe, okay, you're allowed to say he's alive. Crooked cops, media won't print it. So Suge had to say Suge is alive to drop it away, or he wouldn't be able to hear it from him. Wake up, people acting dumb. Junior Mouton thought you were smarter than that. There's a channel name. He interviews people that were involved in Pac's life, and some girl says that he said they had a vest on. We'll take it after. He had 2 felonies. I live in fear of a felony. Maybe he was tired of getting shot at, getting blamed for stuff he didn't, or maybe he got a limelight. Cybersecurity. Suge said Tupac about faking his death. It's not true. Think that all the logic across the board, the stuff is very interesting. I could care less about all this stuff. It's entertainment. I always wanted to hear. Think about it like this. We can talk about this. We can have all our opinions. In all likelihood, neither one of these cases is going to be solved. Tupac's case is not going to be solved. Biggie's case is not going to be solved. They're just not going to be solved. You had a lot of incompetent police departments. They just weren't able to solve it. But that's another topic. I always wanted to hear more about this. Didn't Tupac have some type of altercation with the Crips before in the arena before the Anderson beatdown? Questionable. Reggie. Why only had one bodyguard that night in Vegas with Pac? That was always interesting. Only one bodyguard. I mean, all that money that was being spent, you only have one bodyguard. Now, of course, you have all the ragtag gangster bodyguards who basically aren't trained. somebody should, well, a lot of people should have been on alert that night. I mean, especially with the magnitude of just Las Vegas in general. And you know that if all these gangbangers show up on Las Vegas the night, that something's going to take place. I mean, none of these guys are mild mannered, just kind of like the Wild West out there. All right. Let's see here. Let's keep it positive. I like the. Yeah, I mean, I like all the Tupac channels. I mean, I only listen to certain ones, but I mean, hey, to each their own, man. Let's see here. Why nobody cared about the guns at night? John Reggie told them to carry guns. The government did the hit, according to. Well, there was a stash box. Yeah, that was a statement that was made. There was a stash box. It was there. They were afraid to go pick up the car, but I would think that if it was somebody's car, they could have said it was somebody's car. It was Norris Anderson's car, and that's going to be a name that's going to be brought up on the next live stream. Norris Anderson and a few other people that we hardly ever hear about. But you're going to get some interesting takes on certain things that happen to Death Row Records. And even though it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's old information, but it's very, very, very overlooked information. Nobody has talked about it before. And you're going to find it interesting that there's a certain element that keeps being brought up as far as what I'm going to talk about next time. So, see here, Pac didn't see the fight supposedly. You already know why Pac had one body. Do you have more info on the altercation arena before the beatdown? There was more info there. I mean, I can't read it just because I'd have to actually go through every chapter on that book. I can't read it. I don't know. Like I said before, I'm just repeating. I'm echoing what Keefe D said. I'm not saying I believe the story. I'm just telling you that he had enough words to basically fill a 200-page book, and he called out a lot of people at the end there in the epilogue. Greg Kading being one of them, calling him a snake and everything. Ultimately, Greg Kading made a lot of money doing this. He made a lot of money. He made a lot of money writing a science fiction book. He made a lot of money making a docuseries. He made a lot of money just doing guest appearances or whatever. I mean, I don't know how much he gets paid for this crap, but he basically he goes out there and spews what he wrote in his book and all the other stuff, and he's laughing all the way to the bank. So, I mean, think about who the real losers were in this. And I mean when I say the losers in this, I don't mean like losers as in like a failure. What I mean is like people who basically got their life stories told by someone who was really didn't have his heart in it to begin with. I mean, I think it all came down to him trying to absolve the LAPD from doing anything. So, all right. So we got a few more questions going to read off, and then we're just going to wrap it up, and then we'll have another live stream. I'm thinking on Thursday. So today's Monday, maybe Wednesday. We'll do another live stream on Wednesday. We'll go over a few things, and it's mainly going to be about Death Row Records. So anyhow. Anybody that didn't want to really listen about Keefe D, I apologize. I mean, like I said before, as a researcher, you have to be unbiased on what you read and what you investigate or whatever, and you just got to go out there and you just got to put it out there, and just lay it out on the line, whatever it is, and believe whatever you want to believe. You want to believe he was a killer. You want to believe Tupac's alive. You want to believe whatever you want to believe. That's okay. I mean, it's your opinion, to each their own, and I'll leave it pretty much at that. So, like I said, we got a few more, and let's see here, a few more questions, and then we'll wrap it up, call it a night. But I thank everybody for joining, and I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And as I mentioned, like, you guys can, chase whatever it is you believe. That's cool. And I think, if anything, if you feel strongly about the Tupac case or Notorious B.I.G. or whatever it is, certainly start a channel. Do a live stream. It's pretty easy. It's not very hard at all. Probably going to do a tutorial on how to set up a little studio so that you can do it yourself if you want to come out and say it. And I think the most important thing, too, is just kind of speaking fluidly as well. You know, if you can't speak fluently, just take a couple of rotary classes so that you can get rid of the ahs and the ums. And I do it sometimes, but I just like to keep it fluid, keep it going, and keep people involved, keep it interactive. So I appreciate that, Arobe. I mean, it's been like 3 or 4 months since I've been away. I just been busy with work, been doing a lot of stuff, and been traveling. Just it gets busy, man. So I and people will always say, "Well, you're not making any money. You know, you're making money. You know, like you're doing this for the money." I'm like, "What money? There's no money in the YouTube game, unless you're like one of those dudes who makes like gets millions of views, 100,000 views. This isn't a career. I have a career. There's no career in this. I mean, YouTube's fun, and Gino Mouton said that it's entertainment more than anything. I mean, it just depends on how you look at it. I mean, I couldn't be a YouTuber, not even a star. Not even the best YouTube channels are going to make that kind of loot, you know? But if anything, as I mentioned before, support the channels that you want to support. It's all good. Do what you got to do. To me, it doesn't make a difference. There's no battle here. I'm not trying to say, hey, you guys, you need to pick this side, pick that side. Nah, man. You pick whatever you like. People just want to listen to stuff. People don't want to be told, hey, man, you got to choose this side. You got to be on this side because if you're not on this side, you're on the wrong side. That's not what this is about. This is a free country. You go and do whatever you want to listen to. And that's why it is. Now, so people start telling you need to listen to this channel and you need to stick to this channel and you can't go over there and you can't do this. I say, man, stay away. Why? You're not in a country that can be controlled, can control you. So why is it gotta be YouTube? So, anyways, I'm on my soapbox here when it comes to things like that. So, read a few more comments here. Trayvon is gonna talk on. Okay, I think Trayvon has come out and said a few words about a few things. Let's see here. Machiavelli. Some people said that he didn't see it and they don't show him anywhere during the fight. I don't know, man. Like I said, there's too many stories. Everybody says he saw the fight. Wanted him to go so bad. No. Keefe proved Mac and Perez was involved. That is big news. He alluded to them being involved. But I think there's a little bit of science here on that. If you go and you look at the video, and maybe it's just junk science. I don't know. But measure how tall the guy is, because there's a guy that's jumped into the car real quickly. They like kind of fast forward it. I think he's wearing like a yellow jacket, and he either has black hair, kind of looks like the wig David Mack wore during the bank robbery. But if you kind of just measure top of the car and then measure the top of the person's head, like I said, this could be junk science. You can kind of determine how tall that guy was. You know, because people say it was a mirror. You know, he was there that night. I could tell you that. If people will say that Amir wasn't there that night, they're full of it. I mean, the video evidence, there was no video evidence, but there are certain people that said that he was there. So I don't know why people would make these things up. And not one person ever said, not one single person ever said they saw Wardell Poochie Faust that night. And I'll leave that at that. So, Keefe, okay, so Machiavelli, check out that channel. Pac to go to Vegas. Well, they think about this, okay? If Pac would have went to Vegas and he gets killed, or he needed to be killed that night for whatever reason, if you want to believe Suge Knight was involved, it still wouldn't matter. Somebody's going to get his money. His mom's going to get his money. His beneficiary's going to get his money. So I say that if Pac was killed for any reason, which if you want to believe that, it wouldn't be for him to lose his money. It would be because he knew something was deeper, maybe something to do with drugs. Kind of like the whole thing with the Tekashi 96 guy or whatever. You know, I don't know what his name is. But, I mean, he's pretty much ratting on everybody, right? He's going to get immunity for his testimony. So maybe they felt like Tupac was going to snitch on him. If you want to go that way, if you want to go that route. But I don't think that Tupac was killed by Suge Knight, if you want to believe that theory, because basically he had to pay Tupac. He's still going to have to pay somebody. Just because Tupac dies doesn't mean that he's free from debt. He doesn't have to pay anybody. Suge would have still had to pay his mom, which eventually he did either way. So that's why I can't believe that one. So let's see here. So make a video. Oh man. Let's see here. Machiavelli the Don. I say just go buy the book, man. Read it. It's a digital download. Go to Amazon, hit the button, and just download and read it. I wouldn't want to make a video about all the pages of his book just because I don't know, there may be some copyright infringement or something. I mean, I don't know how that works out, but certainly don't want to get struck by Keefe D. You know, he may come after me. You never know. I don't know. Anyways, he said that. Oh, here's another funny thing. Keefe D said that Suge Knight hired some Navy SEAL guys to protect him. Some Navy SEAL guys. It was either it was either Suge. Hold on, I take that back. It was either Suge or Puffy. I'm not too sure. He says that Navy SEALs that if they would have went to basically would have went to war, they would have killed the Navy SEALs because gangbangers don't play. Oh man, I when I read that I thought that was the funniest thing. Okay, so we got some gangbangers up against some Navy SEAls. Okay, that's gonna be that's a tough one. That's a tough one, right, guys? I mean, if you're listening to that, you see how ludicrous that is. The Navy SEALs losing to gang members. Okay, maybe in the movies, but not in real life. All right, so what do you think about Gobi? You know what? I haven't heard from Gobi in a long time. I don't even does everybody out there, does Gobi still even have a channel out there? Because I remember at one point he was just coming out with video after video, kind of just doing some trivial stuff as far as his own personal life, and then he was talking about Tupac things, and it was kind of gaining traction, and then all of a sudden it just kind of like just went away. Did anybody chime in on Gobi? Is Gobi still around? Does Gobi still exist? Or is he in Cuba with Tupac? All right, Gobi is good people. He cared for Pac. Yeah, I concur. He certainly was. Is there more video of Tupac fighting Orlando? I don't think there is. I think the video that you see is the video that you get, unless there's some more of the recordings that they never released. You're supposed to. Puffy is evil, man. Yep, I agree with that. Puffy is evil. He's gonna get what he got coming to him. To be in Vegas at night, he had to perform for a charity concert for cops. That's why he was going to 662. Yeah, that's true. Suge was having money stolen from him by Kenner and Cantrunk. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is that Kenner, basically, if you really think about it, Kenner, I believe, was, whether on the surface people would say that Cantrunk wasn't involved with Kenner, but I think that he was basically the conduit to Kenner so that he could funnel the money out of Death Row Records. And it's no mystery, Steve Cantrunk was actually cooking the books, and they were stealing money, and just real poor money management when it comes to them losing money to this guy. Basically, he weasel one over them. When I say them, I mean Death Row Records. So Machiavelli, he was mandated to be there. That's correct. Went to carry weapons. Keefe D wants the info out. You can post a page up. I'm sure Keefe D wants. I mean, I don't know how much. I don't have a lot of followers. I don't have a lot of people. I mean, people are gonna go out and buy his book or do whatever they're gonna do. He's not gonna make much money on it. Once you have that one person who's gonna bootleg his book, it's pretty much game over, man. He's not gonna make his $10 off of every digital download. Digital downloads. Think about it. People start bootlegging that. People are gonna have it all the way across the board, and he's gonna lose a ton of money. So hopefully he got an advance. I don't know. And whoever his ghostwriter was, I would say he had a little sophistication as far as him being literate. But the book that I got, there was no spaces and there was a lot of run-on sentences. So I don't know if that was by design, or if they just didn't have a budget to use punctuation and proper grammar. So he has a Facebook. Keefe D could take out the U.S. Army. Yeah, according to Keefe D, the gangsters were going to take out the Navy SEALs, so the Navy SEALs didn't have any. So I don't have any faith in Navy SEALs anymore. So See, one Navy SEAL would kill 10 gangbangers. Gangbangers don't hold guns straight. Yeah, you're right. Keefe would tell the Navy SEALs would gangbang out here in the street. All right. Keefe D's worse than Bozo the Clown with his book. Yeah, Gobi stopped making videos when I pointed out the same squib effects blood squibs used to make use in the Kovan Flamingo. Said recently the bro that Kenner was working with Suge and Cantrock was so proof using Cantrock. Keefe D is gonna pimp slap when spoke to Keefe. You know, that's what Keefe D made it seem like, that everybody that he approached, everybody that saw him was scared of him. Suge Knight was scared of him. All these dudes were scared of him. He started making fun of Tupac when he first saw him, when he was with Digital Underground. I mean, he was making fun of everybody. I mean, and obviously he's going to do that. I mean, he's writing his own book. He's going to be biased. He's not going to talk about himself or talk about his crew or talk about anybody. I mean, basically all he really did was come out and say that everybody was a snitch, and that's the only reason why he folded, is what he said. But there's just a lot of, just smaller details that were in there that just kind of was like, man, I never heard that before, So, I mean, to each their own, man. I mean, whatever it may be, he just pretty much laid it out there for everybody to read. And then, but as I mentioned before, he's not going to get any money from any interviews now. Nobody's going to pay $500 or $750 or $1,000 to do an interview with the guy, just because he's already mentioned everything already in his book, whether it be true or false. Who knows? So that's pretty much the synopsis of the book. And as I mentioned before, if you were on the show earlier, he pretty much says that he had a connection to Death Row Records as far as funding it. He said he didn't know who Michael Harris was, but he said that he had money involved in Death Row Records. I don't know how friendly these guys were, but he mentioned his plug was a guy named Bossman, Machiavelli the Don. His plug for his cocaine and for his PCP or whatever it was, all his drugs, was a guy named Bossman. He didn't allude to what his name was, but it was a guy from the Mexican cartel or the Colombian cartel or something like that. And the last thing that I'll say, or one of the last statements I'll make, is that he said that he wished he would have never been involved in killing Tupac, because it changed the course of his history as far as him making millions of dollars, because he lost it all. Because he said the Compton Police Department, namely Sergeant Reynolds, had a hard-on for Southside and basically made sure that they got raided, make sure that they got just dealt with every opportunity that it was possible, and that if he wasn't involved in that, then nothing would have happened. But he pretty much said that all these guys were collateral damage, is what he said. He said a lot of his Compton gangbangers, his fellow men, all got killed in the streets. He said they killed a lot of Mom Pyru. He said that, here's another thing he mentioned as well. He said that Orlando Anderson got shot in the knees with the AK-47. I think that was always debatable, or it was mentioned by somebody. And as I mentioned before, my disclaimer is that I'm just repeating what the book says. I'm not saying that I believe this stuff at all. I'm just telling you what he said. And a lot of the information has been out there. So I don't know if he just copied all this stuff and just put it in the book, because he's like, it's already there already. But little did you know, I mean, and he pretty much lays it out there as far as people hanging around, like normal people hanging around all these gang members, like celebrities, like basketball players and football players and all these people that were, he mentioned that the David Mack and Rafael Perez, no mystery, they were blood gang members, is what he said. That's what he said. They were blood gang members. He mentioned other people that we thought they were just like basketball players and stuff. That were gang members. Picture that. But then again, I always wonder why Suge Knight wanted to get wrapped up in the gang banging situation, making millions of dollars. I just couldn't. I mean, if they would have stayed away from the whole gang banging element, then life would have been grand. Would have made a lot of money, and it would have been a golden era. But it just didn't end up that way. It ended up differently. KBD also talks about Snoop Dogg. He talks about Snoop Dogg and Daz. He talks about how they would roll up, and that nobody would want to talk to the Southside Crips. But he said that Daz was the only one that didn't want to talk to them. And then when they confronted him, that he was scared, that he was scary, that he wasn't a gangbanger, is what he says about Daz. That's exactly what he says. He talks about the time when it was Snoop Dogg, Tupac, and Suge Knight. They rolled up in Rolls Royces, each had one, and that somebody shot at Suge Knight after that, but he said he wasn't involved in that predicament. So somebody was giving away details, and you better just bet your last dollar on that somebody was giving away details about where Tupac's whereabouts were, where Suge Knight's whereabouts were. And I think he also said, too, the FBI was watching. The FBI was watching everybody, including, and when I say everybody, I mean all the camps, showing all camps were involved, all of them. FBI watching them. So, as I mentioned before, read the book if you want to. If not, I don't know. Don't read it. Doesn't matter. To each their own. It's $10 in Kindle. I'm not here to promote his book. I'm not getting anything from it. I'll make a whole like 5 cents from this live stream. So for the people out there saying, you're just out here making money, you want to make money, you want to, promote his book, like, there's no money to be made in this. A nickel. I mean, if you call that money, then I don't know. There's some serious things going on. But I'm going to read the last questions. Man, we're already going to be at an hour and a half already. Appreciate everybody hanging around, hanging tight, getting in here. Let's see here. Well, the thing I've wondered is, and I'm reading a comment here, is it says, sounds like a bunch of damage control. Wonder who got him the book deal. I don't know who got him the book deal, but I'd be interested to know who his ghostwriter was, because I know he didn't write the book himself. So he had to have somebody write his book, and then, of course, they had a publishing company, and I think he may have made his own publishing company. He'd make more money that way, and then you have a distribution. So let's see here. So here we go. So here's the comments. It says he's one of the few people still alive that knows where Pac is and that what he looks like now, meaning Pac changed his features. Funny, people are scrambling for answers to come up with theories. Boss man is Patrick Johnson. He was a plug originally, later on the plug. Orange. He wasn't involved in killing Pac. Yeah. The boss man wasn't involved in killing Tupac. That's correct. He was involved in the cover-up. Blaming Reynolds instead of blaming. Reynolds is working with Orange. Check out the interview with the mayor. Okay. Why they never charged Orlando Anderson. The never obey. Suge wasn't gangbanging. His boys are working legal jobs. They wore red and had a few fights, but that wasn't gangbanging. Snoop and Daz used to get beat up. Easy already said that. They're fake. What did they say about... Oh. Nothing. Basically what he says, the KBD says when they rolled up on him that, better not basically touch my kin. If not, the gloves are coming off. And that's pretty much all in all. Pretty much sped off after that point. So, I mean, anybody would do that. I mean, if you had a son, all of us would, that love our kids. If you had a son and somebody that threatened to do something to them, you'd make sure to let that person know if something happened to your son that you would be right after them. I mean, that's pretty much, I think, common amongst us all. People believe he's alive as long as the opinions are respected. That's why it's official, super respectful, even though I know that he knows that Pac is alive. I want to read the Eugenia book. Did he mention how Puffy? I don't believe so. I don't know. I have no idea. As I mentioned, these are all Keefe D's thoughts. These are all his sentences. These are all his quotes. These have nothing to do with me. I'm basically just echoing everything to y'all. I'm not saying I believe it, because I will tell you that I don't believe it. I think he's lied too many times. I think for anything you would really consider this entertainment value, as far as what his book has been, what he's published in his book, take it how it is, whether you believe it or not. All in all, at the end of the day, neither case is going to be solved, Tupac or Biggie. And if let's put it this way, if any of the cases are going to get solved, obviously it probably won't be Tupac's, but it will be Notorious B.I.G. And not this whole thing about this whole charade of, well, the Tupac case has already been solved. No, it hasn't. Until somebody's in handcuffs and somebody is prosecuted, that is a solved case. That's what it is. Okay, there's no half truths. There's only full truth. So the full truth is that if Tupac is killer is dead or alive, whatever you want to call it, and you say you solved this case, then somebody needs to be in handcuffs. If not, somebody needs to come on and says, this is the guy who did it. We're closing the books on this case. Case closed. Open cases means they're not solved yet. Just because somebody says in their mind and comes out in the public and says, oh, the case is solved, that doesn't set any precedent, okay? The president of the United States, whether it be this current one, whether it be the next one, can come out and say tomorrow, the case of Tupac Shakur has been solved already. What does that mean? Nothing at all. Nobody's in cuffs. Case not closed. That's in the story. Notorious B.I.G., the killer's still alive. He's dead. Whatever it may be. Got to get a lot of people collectively to get involved in it, but it's going to take so much time to dig deep into the valleys of information and scoop it up and bring it out to the public and actually get somebody prosecuted for it. Because you were saying that you solved the case, but it's just not going to hold weight in the court of law. Doesn't say a whole lot. It's not for somebody to determine whether or not it's going to be held up in the court of law. It's about getting your evidence, bringing it into the court of law, and letting 12 people decide, or letting a judge decide whether or not your evidence holds weight. That's what a real prosecution is. Not this half investigation so that you can write a book and you can make a lot of money. So that's just my opinion. So anyways, we're going to wrap it up at 11 o'clock. Certainly wrap it up at 11 o'clock. I know people got to go to work tomorrow. People go what they got to do. So I'm going to read these last comments here, and then we can move on. Who was in the car that shot Tupac? I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know who was in the car. Yes, Vegas knows Orlando went to the bar. Then his hotel room. He wasn't in the car. Didn't have a caddy. Trust me, the real culprits are alive. Mark my words. Keep up the good info, JM. Justice for Tupac. Yes, justice for Tupac. And hopefully he will get justice. Whether it be symbolic as saying, you know what? X, Y, and Z did it. We're closing the case. We want to close the case. And for some people, that'll ease their peace of mind. And they can say, you know what? Whether they believe it or not, Tupac is dead, or that's it. Same thing for Notorious B.I.G. We find out who did it, bring it to the court of law. It's not trying to muddy up stuff and try to call people crazy and all this other stuff. Let it play out in the court of law. One of the main people that would have pretty much sealed the fate for LAPD officers would have been Russell Poole, who they said, hey, you got to stay away. If a police officer didn't know the truth, if a police officer was on his own agenda and his own witch hunt, then essentially what would happen was that they would pretty much know that that's what was taking place. But instead, he had some elements of truth with it, and they didn't let him investigate it. So I'll pretty much leave it at that. Don't want to keep going on with that, but you kind of get the picture. If you go to your superiors and say, I have some information on police officers, say, you know what, you need to stay away. Don't investigate it anymore. Leave it alone. Then what happens? You decide. So, got a few more comments. We'll live stream on Wednesday for sure. And, maybe somebody will try to sabotage that. I don't know. That's what I was kind of concerned about. I don't have a lot of supporters. I don't. But you have the other people that they don't want to see other channels flourish. This is very mild flourish. So let's see here. So just for pockets coming, charge after the fight. After the fight, shoot back. Was true. Sure. So interesting topic. Next time around, we'll be coming out with. But as I mentioned before, I appreciate everybody coming tonight, listening to this. I mean, we've had a pretty good chat room. We didn't have any trolls in here tonight, which was kind of surprising, knock on wood. But most of the people that would just troll and would just be vile and just kind of just talk, just craziness, I pretty much banned them. And that's the luxury, and that's what I love about YouTube, is that the people that don't bring anything intelligent to the conversation, we all could disagree on things. That's okay. But, I mean, you start disrespecting people and start calling people names, all this other stuff. You just basically just ban them. You don't have to ever hear from them again. That's all I like about it. It's kind of like in real life, You want to talking about it, talk to somebody, you just get rid of them. You don't have to talk to them anymore. So, you bet Machiavelli down. So, somebody put, is that a real pic? Is that pic fake? So, just to rehash, Keefe elaborated more on his connection with Death Row Records, the funding. Greg Kading told Keefe if he spoke with the FBI first, the deal was off the table. Was Las Vegas Metropolitan PD really that incompetent? Sergeant Reynolds became public enemy number one for the SSC. The epilogue, where essentially Keefe pretty much talked about his disdain and dislike for Greg Kading. And then, is this story too elaborate for Keefe to be lying? Was the Puffy element used to hide something more sinister? Who knows? But if you haven't, or if you're on the fence or whatever, please support Jmix channel, Jmix exclusives. As I mentioned before, he's coming out with something here very soon, something that I think people will want to hear. Very good interview lined up that other channels are not going to get. Pretty much exclusive. And go to another guy that I support as well, and I see Never Obey over there, is Big Kaz TV. Go to Big Kaz TV, support his channel. He's actually coming up, and he has some pretty interesting topics he talks about. Go to Big Kaz TV. And I know that people have their opinions, and as I mentioned before, never done anything wrong to me, and can certainly appreciate what people's feelings. Do what you got to do. Go to RJ Bond's channel. He does his live streams. He's been on for about 3 weeks. So, and I think that's pretty much all the channels that I pretty much visit. I mean, you have Controversy Radio. If you like Controversy Radio, go to Controversy Radio. He has a good channel. He has some pretty interesting topics. Pretty much talks about Tupac, but also talks about other world events, Iran, things of that nature. And I think that's it. I mean, if you believe Big Kaz, who is regular Big Kaz, who has supposedly has the Death Row Masters, then you can go to his channel, visit his channel. I don't think he's associated with rap music anymore. I think he's more of like a bicycle rider or something. So, not bicycle rider, but motorcycle rider. So, let's see here. So, trolls will get banned if they get out of line. Yeah, I agree with you. Pointing out that ever since John Live. So before we go, she's in her book. pictures of the final state. Saving the hospital. Yeah, big cash channel is. Tupac was killed in the hospital. King's an agent. So really quickly, guys, if you got a channel and you're doing something on your own, certainly give your shout out on the board to your channel, promote it if you need to. Everybody, if you want to mention, shouts out from where you're from, certainly may. It's cool. Currently, right now, in the Central Time Zone. I think I mentioned where I was live streaming from, and then you certainly may if you want, but if not, no worries. Nobody's here to do any harm, or at least we believe that. Do I believe he had the Pac masters? I don't know. That's very interesting. I mean, I think he said he came out with a few songs that people heard, and some other people agree with him. I'm not too certain if he does or not. I mean, I don't know if him having masters would get him in trouble with the estate now. I guess because they own all the music now, from what we read. So, and then I know that there was somebody leaked out a bunch of music from Tupac, either from, I don't remember if it was the Wide Awake catalog, or I don't know what it was from, but somebody did that. But who knows? Will we get another full Tupac album? I mean, man, if we do, I think it'll be pretty good. It'll sell in the millions. But as far as like with all the bootlegging and stuff like that, who knows? I mean, that's the only thing that's ruined the record industry. I mean, most of it's digital download. So everybody, think about it. There's people that probably still hate Tupac to this day, and I would say, namely, one of those would probably be Puff, whatever. I can almost tell you that he hates Tupac to this day. He'll never be a real man like Tupac. I mean, if you really think about it, he's a coward. And I think that you would have certain people who would try to put his music out in the mass so that people could download it, so that he doesn't have that continued success. Or that'll be the public perception, is that Tupac doesn't have that same drive that he once did back in the 90s. But Tupac's Tupac. I mean, that's never going to go away, even though whatever you believe, whether he's gone away or he's on vacation or he's whatever, he's still selling millions of records to this day. He's still making money off his publishing, still making money, period. So it doesn't matter if anybody tries to tarnish his legacy. That's never going to happen, but to each their own. So whatever. So we have 2 more minutes here. We're going to wrap up. And hopefully y'all join me Wednesday. We'll have that one topic of discussion that we're going to have. Got a pretty good little slideshow that we're going to be going through so that you can pretty much hear about some people. And I will mention one of the people that you'll hear about is Norris Anderson. Not a lot of people hear about Norris Anderson. But you'll start trying to figure out how like certain things happen. And I'm trying to speak here in riddles here, but you're going to start seeing how certain things happen. And you're going to kind of question yourself, like, this is like really, really, really strange transactions that were happening. So, but, I don't want to give too much away, but you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. And then, like I said before, I mean, a lot of times we segue into other things about Tupac. So it's not always like about one thing. It's not always about one subject. We kind of started off this live stream talking about Keefe, and then we kind of went, left, right, and kept going straight with other things. So it's never going to be solely about the one topic that we get on, but it kind of segues into other things. So, but I certainly appreciate everybody being here tonight. And we'll get together on Wednesday. We'll live stream probably about the same time, 9:30, and we'll just it'll just be more things. So I think that's pretty much it for me tonight. As I mentioned before, spend your money, save your money on that book if you want. Like I said, it makes no difference to me. This is not promoting his channel. If, and I say if, he killed Tupac or was associated with killing Tupac. Whoever it is, let's just say anybody, whoever it is, I would never have respect for them for ever doing that. I mean, you essentially changed the course of history by killing the greatest rap artist of all time. But I just felt like he should have been protected a lot better than he was. And those are things that the what ifs that we'll never be able to understand. The what ifs, if he would have been protected better and he would have actually just been cherished more as an artist and not try to get him involved in all this other crazy stuff that was taking place that he really had no business getting involved with. And I think that that's where people got mistaken by believing a certain way. And it's not his fault. People always say it was his fault. It's not his fault. It was the people that were supposed to be protecting his fault. For sure. That's why you get paid to do that. So we'll see here. Got a last comments and then we'll hang it up. So I need a Tupac interview. Snoop, John, I know that there's over 100 songs or more that haven't been released. Why she won't release it? I'm not looking for subscribers. Just watch my videos. Yeah, man. Orange Sodas. Go watch his channel. Sub to his channel. Like I said, I'm not here to say, hey, don't look at this guy. Don't look at this guy. I don't agree with everybody, but I'm not here to change anybody's mind. You do what you got to do. You listen to who you want to listen to. If you believe there's pink elephants, then hey, I'm okay with that. So all right. So any final words for anybody out there? Maybe we may have some call-ins. I just, like I said, the studio, I really unplugged everything and pretty much was, that was pretty much it. So it was kind of hard to put everything back together without there being any loopbacks. But shouts out to Never Obey. I don't know if Never Obey is still here, but you know, certainly, you know, sometimes you get to know people and you get to learn their stories and you get to know their backgrounds and where they've been at, where they've been from, things like that. You know, I won't give away too information, but essentially he pretty much had a rough patch in his life and pretty much got through it. So there's a lot of good in that. So good dude. Everybody's pretty much been good in this chat room. Appreciate y'all just sharing topics with each other. And like I said, there's always gonna be some disagreement, but that's okay. No worries on that. So anyhow, Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll have another topic of discussion. Mentioned before, you already know the topic. If you missed it, talked about Keefe D, his book. If you want to read it, go spend $10. If you don't, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Also, subscribe to Jmix exclusives. You're going to have some good content coming out. As I mentioned before, don't worry too much about him. He's doing great. He's having fun with his family. He's enjoying life. Just had to take a break from this Tupac thing. Myself, I had to get away for a little bit because I have work and other engagements, but I like being involved in the Tupac thing. I think it's important to keep his memory alive. He certainly was taken away from us too soon. Age of 25. Very inspiring and had a lot to give to the world. It was taken short. So anyhow, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And as I always mentioned before, always seek the truth no matter where it takes you. Have a good night, folks.